Davis or
Let's
whatnot.
think
But you,
that Stambouli shouldn't be playing in this lineup. I know you agree with me there. He needs to be
oh yeah,
playing.
no, I think he needs to be playing with Mason in lieu of Bentelev. That's exactly what I feel.
Well, I don't know. I think that Bentelev is, look, if the knock on Stambouli, and I watch him because I love him. I watch him so much, and I mean, sometimes I like fixate on him just to really just see what he does and what he doesn't do. If there's one knock on him is that he can lose his man, and he's not very good at tracking back. And I think that's the one thing that Nabil can really cover for him on.
True.
He's pretty rock solid, doesn't lose the ball much, but he doesn't give you much offensively. And I think Benji does more so than what Mason has provided. I just think that he's really, I think he's technically a better player than Mason is. I just think he's, I don't know, I think he's just a sexier player, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm glad to see him get in today, and granted it wasn't a whole bunch of minutes, but he's shown well in all his European fixtures with a, a few mistakes he's made, so I think it's fun.
I just, and to go back to my point a little bit, I'm saying that I don't think that you need to change the system to meet the players that you have, because all you're going to do is confuse the players. It's just like bringing in a new manager if you change the system next year. Well, I had to play that system because this is the kind of players we had. Now we're going to change everything up again and change all the terminology and change the way we do things. No, play the system you want to play, even if you don't have the players to play it. And at least those 7 or 8 core players that you are going to, build this thing around, and even if it's a few less, if it's 6 or 7, at least they know the system. And if you bring somebody in, especially if they can get somebody in from Southampton, and or Espanyol even, they're talking about the center back over there at Espanyol maybe coming over, that they already understand what it is he's going to try to do, and it's almost like in the NFL when you get a player that goes back to a coach that he was with 2 years ago, and then instantly he integrates into the team like it's completely seamless because they already understand and know what's going on. So I very much expect him to go after 1 or 2 Southampton players, rumors or no rumors. But I don't expect him to change the system just to appease fans. I think that's ridiculous.
I don't think he needs to, but I think the one thing that does frustrate me a little bit about him is that there's some subtle things that he can do that inevitably there's enough body of work here to see that it works. Every time that we put Eriksson in sort of a commanding leadership role in the middle of the field, we simply create more.
Yeah.
Bar none. I just think that's refutable. So I'm not asking him to change his system. I'm asking him to be a little bit to show more adaptability. Now, in his defense, he did today. He did it but he did it late, and it's almost like banging your head up against the wall to a degree. And I kind of felt like he was doing that and just wasn't really being willing to open to change. But I think his hand was somewhat forced today. He had no choice, and ironically. Well, not ironically, it just simply it worked as it has been.
Right.
But I don't know. And we talked about the fixtures. We've got some interesting ones coming up, don't we?
We do. And it's kind of cool because it gives us an opportunity. I say this with bated breath, but it gives us an opportunity, I think, to really make a good push. Newcastle Capital One Cup. That's kind of a revenge game, and they were in really fine form up until the last couple of weeks, and for whatever reason, whether it's that they've got a third string goalkeeper in there right now, if they've been hit with a couple of suspensions because of red card or yellow card accumulation rather, or maybe just that solid run of fixtures that they had, albeit starting with us, has kind of fizzled out a little bit. We get Newcastle here for the Capital One Cup, and it's going to be a little bit of a revenge game for us because, again, it was one of those fixtures where today we feel like we kind of stole one. That was one of the ones that got away from us that we feel we should have had. So this is, Capital One Cup. It's not the most glorious thing in the world, but it's silverware.
I agree, and we better not mug this one off like we did last Thursday in Turkey. I mean, I went on a bit of a tirade about that match, but I was pissed off. I mean, look, it's one thing, as I said, to lose in Turkey. It's never easy to play, irrespective of who you're playing. But all the glad, the slap happiness that we had. And, we're in and as a manager, I was just, I don't know, I just sensed that he didn't instill in these players that every performance is important to the task at hand, and so I'm hopeful that we don't mug this one off, and that we we field a good 11, and that we instill in these players that it is extremely important for us to progress, especially if he is really developing a system and a philosophy. So it's important. I agree.
I think being a domestic cup, I'm not expecting that. I think Europe was one of those things where we were already qualified. And whether we finish A or B in that group, the way that the draw happens anymore, it doesn't matter. You're almost better off being a B.
Well, that's a good point, and there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. Yeah, and I'm hopeful that we take it as an important showing, and then only 3 days later we have Burnley at home.
Burnley at home, and then Leicester on the road. So, and that game is on a Friday. So that's a little bit odd. But
that's right. It's on Boxing Day. Yeah.
That's on Boxing Day.
Yeah.
So that'll be on the 26th, and those are two games that are surely winnable. Both teams are squarely in the relegation zone, and especially Leicester. They've struggled mightily. They fired their director of football today. I saw that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they did. And
after losing to Man City 1-0?
Yeah. Well, I just think it's been the run. Ever since they beat United, they haven't done squat. I mean, they really haven't, and they are just firmly entrenched in relegation. And I thought they were going to be one of the three teams really that kind of took off with this thing a little bit, because they had such a good year in the championship last year. And it's just not happening, so that they made some changes, and then after that, United and Chelsea back to back, both at the Lane, on a Sunday, Thursday, type of thing in January again. Fixtures hot and fast before we get
United playing well. Oh well, I mean they're getting results in the game.
They're getting results, and 6 of 6 that they've won. Now, some of these things haven't been the most convincing of victories for them, and they are still very defensive liability type teams at the back, playing much like Liverpool does. So when we face them, I got a feeling we're going to be looking in the mirror, playing United, where we can be very aggressive up front and have a lot of skill from an Eriksen, Kane, Lamella type of mirrored image, looking at them with Rooney and Van Persie and the rest, coming at you from their midfield. And for some reason, I have no qualms about that fixture whatsoever. I really look at that as a game we should win. It's the one behind that, the Chelsea match. That I really want to get them at home, because I felt we played so much better than the result bared at the Bridge.
Kenny, to be perfectly fair, I worry about every fixture. Don't
you have to?
Well, we do, and I just don't think. I'm not hopeful for either of those. I'm. What's interesting? I don't know if you saw this or not, but there's an interesting fixture. I think there's an Arsenal-Liverpool fixture coming up. That's a critical one.
Yeah. Next week.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that Brendan Rodgers actually is really on the hot seat. God.
Yeah, and if we take care of business against Burnley and Liverpool nicks Arsenal, we leapfrog them, and we're up to 6th, if not 5th.
I know. So that's why, as I get in these discussions with people on Twitter, and everybody's so bent out of shape. Look, as we said last week, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of weeks, the whole world can be upside down. I mean,
and if we would have taken care of some things earlier in the year with Sunderland and West Brom, we would be right there. We'd be in the top 4 right now. But this. Oh, Twitter, cry me a river, Justin Timberlake. And our last 4 fixtures have been the same way. 0-3 at the Bridge. We lose to Chelsea. 3-0. And everybody comes out of that going, you know what? I'm not upset about that. I thought we played well. They got a couple of goals that maybe they didn't really deserve, blah, 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 whatever. Then we draw a match against Palace, and everybody's whining and crying like we just lost. Awfully. So you can't take points. You can't even take points and be happy anymore. Apparently, if you're a Spurs fan.
I just think it's a combination of some expectations that might have been inappropriately elevated after the Everton match, and the sort of hopeful thinking that people have that we are going to at least be showing something, and Palace we were clearly tired. One thing very quick, I'll just mention this.
Sure.
Tell the listeners is that in addition to looking at our run of fixtures, which with the exception of Man U and Chelsea, looks somewhat manageable. There's some very, very, very interesting fixtures away from us. That is, we just said, could really, really change things. So, I'm just hopeful that we can be progressing and we can.
Yeah.
Like today, for example, I thought we got outplayed again. So I'm just real more focused on, first of all, 3 points, get the points, but building confidence. And I don't know whether we did today, and we're hailing the mentality of the players and blah blah. I'm tired of that. I like to see some quality play.
You look at today though, and Swansea had only lost once at home all year long, and they've only been behind. No, I don't think they had lost at home. They had only been behind 3 total minutes or whatever it was at home all year long.
Yeah.
And we shut them up. I mean, from the get-go, we score in the 3rd minute, and then, from there on out, it was up until, second half. Boney had the nice rebound and very patiently put the ball into the right side of the net.
They didn't deserve to lose it.
No, they didn't deserve to lose it. Maybe we didn't deserve to win it, but you know what? I don't think we deserve to lose it. I thought that we played well enough to at least gain the point that we were about to gain before they made a critical defensive error. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
How many times have we made a critical defensive error in the from the 80th minute on, and it cost us a game against West Brom, or cost us a game against Sunderland, or points somewhere else that cost us a draw? Yeah. It's the same. These things go back and forth over a 38 game season.
It's a fine dividing line.
It is, and like you said, you can't take anybody lightly. You can't.
No, you can't.
I mean, this is the same Swansea team that beat the crap out of Arsenal, and Gomez had that winner, and they brought him in today in the last 10 minutes, and gave Boney a breather and put those fresh legs on. Gomez looks like he ought to be playing defensive end for the Cowboys. That guy is massive. He's a monster, and I got worried about that, but I was kind of like, I'm kind of glad they got some size and strength with Fazio and Vertonghen in the middle of that, and I'm so glad that Stambouli was in there to kind of ghost him a little bit in the last 10 minutes or so, because he did a great job of it, and he never became a factor. And Arsenal had no answer for him when he came in. He absolutely ran them ragged, beat them, and then did that crazy, I don't know, freaking it was like a zombie crawl thing, whatever that celebration was that he did. That was kind of wicked. But we just beat that team on the same pitch that they beat Arsenal. So, you know what, I feel good about the win. I'm not so concerned about our form. When you lose 3-0 at the Bridge, and then you lose to Palace, and Poch says, we were tired. I could have told everybody that we were tired before we played that match, and a lot of people thought that was bullshit. When Kane is out there running 13 kilometers per match, eventually, I don't care if he's 9 years old, that's going to catch up to your legs. And it caught up to every single one of those guys at the same time. And that is why we went to the Besiktas, and he played a bunch of people that didn't show up today, and said, I'm resting these legs, I'm going to give these guys a break, and I'm only going to play what I absolutely have to, because we've already qualified for this. The last thing we need is to start going through what Arsenal's going through, or has been going through, which is an injury spell. Why put these guys out there? Pull a hamstring, yank a groin. Walker's just coming back. He's going to be fresh. It's going to be great to have him at right back. Everybody's been pulling for that to happen, and now it's here. Let's try to get that stability at the back, because I think Davis has been, he's upseated Rose for the right back, or for the left back spot.
Yeah, deservedly so. What a tackle! Wow, what an incredible tackle he made today.
Very Ledley King-esque.
You know what you've done? You know what you've done? It's obvious to me. You ended the last show with Monty Python's Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. I feel like you've been playing that over and over.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Frustrated a lot of people, because look, it was one of a number of matches this year that we got a result or faded a loss, when really in reality we could have lost 3-1. Right.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people will just say, hey, look, we're just sort of papering over the cracks, and the football still is generally crap, and players are being played out of position. But I think all your points are very well founded. We're very tired.
Yeah.
I think we're going to learn a lot about this team as we get into, as we get through Christmas.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. There's not going to be wholesale changes. I think we're going to try very hard to find something to add in the striker area, and maybe try and find some defensive cover. And I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of sort of wheeling and dealing. So you give the manager some time, and he's either going to show well enough to keep his job, or we'll be searching for a new manager in the summer.
Yeah, and it's like these people that say Poch out. The thing that worries me about that, and say it happened, then what?